If there was ever an industry that I would say would be like easiest to burn out in, it's marketing. There was like CEOs of huge companies reaching out to me and being like, you have literally said what I have been thinking for the last 6 months, but I didn't know how to tell anyone. I mean, that's just the kind of human I am. If you give me a task, I'm going to put 1,000% of myself in it.
You opened about 14 restaurants in a year.
God.
And I'm just thinking back to that, almost borderline addiction to the social aspect of it.
Yeah. Hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? Like in the moment, I was like, oh, you idiot. Like, how do you not know these steps? Whereas now I can look back and be like, how was I supposed to know? I think because it was Instagram, I didn't consider it work. Yes, I was on the company Instagram and I was replying to customers or like sharing stories or whatever, but I was like, oh, but it's Instagram. You know, I can do this while I'm watching a movie, like while I'm in bed. Oh, you're doing a lot. Like, how is this going? You okay? You know, like blink twice if you need help.
Chanel, how are you doing today?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
We're going to talk about an interesting topic today, mental health considerations for marketers, because, you know, we deserve to have our own space to talk about this. But, I mean, in all seriousness, yeah, like a lot of us have had challenges at times. It can be quite a demanding discipline, and also just a discipline, as we know, that can get probably disproportionately blamed for problems in companies at times. So, you know, that can be a lot for us to hold or to weighs on us. I know you've got some stories about your own personal experiences with this, and like you've said, you've burned out before. Can you just run us through what happened when, like, the first time you burned out, like the lead up to that, and what happened?
Yeah, I was in a role, I was the only marketer in a role for probably 18 months of the almost 2 years that I was in that role. I had to build up marketing as a function and then actually go and execute all the things.
Is that all?
Yeah, just a small thing. Which, to be honest, like those kind of roles excite me. I absolutely love doing that. I think the big thing for me in that role was because I was so excited about the work, it became obvious, not very quickly, but obvious at some point that I was just kind of losing, you know, not necessarily myself in the role, but I was losing a sense of boundaries and how hard I was working. I think I was getting so used to executing on so much all the time that, you know, my level of normal in the role was probably not someone else's level of normal. You know, I was probably going at 200% all the time, and I was like, oh, it's like 50%, it's fine. It was just something that I had never been put in that position before. I'd never been in a head of marketing role. I'd never been in charge of, you know, marketing for the whole business. Like, I was everything from website, social, influencers, sponsorships, partnerships, activations, trade shows. Every idea I had, I then had to go and be the one to execute on it. So it was great to build the strategy and have all these ideas, but then when I present them and everyone gets excited about it, then it's like, okay, cool, Chanel, now you got to go do it. I'm like, oh God, why did I have like, why did I have this stupid idea, you idiot? But there was just so much going on that I was so excited about what the role was. You know, I was head of marketing for an FMCG brand in a category that had never existed before, with a product that had never existed before. So there was just so much that I got to sink my teeth into in that role. And because nothing had been done by a brand or a product similar, I was like, oh my God, we get to define what this looks like for marketing too. And it's important to note, like, that brand at the time in New Zealand was also becoming like quite a big success story. A lot of eyes were watching us on how we were moving and the way we were doing things, because it had never been done before. I think I would be...
And you were quite conscious of that?
I was very conscious of that. I think I'd be lying if I said I didn't. We were getting a lot of awareness and exposure for everything we're doing. Like when we ran our first campaigns, they were, you know, suddenly PR places were picking them up. When we were running events, it was sort of like, oh my God, this FMCG brand is doing this event. This has never been done before. What does this look like? And, you know, all of that stemmed from my little marketing brain and this idea that I, you know, chucked into a spreadsheet. It was so exciting, but there was so much pressure. And because I was getting so much validation over everything we were executing because it was going so well, because it had never been done before, I think the pressure that I put on myself to continue to execute at that level, like I was basically running the brand as if I owned it. And I mean, that's just the kind of human I am. Like, if you give me a task, I'm going to put 1,000% of myself in it, whether that's the right thing to do or not. It's just how I function. Because we were doing so much and I was enjoying doing so much, I just lost sight of maybe what was doing too much. And I didn't realize until it had essentially happened. So leading up to, I mean, at the time, like everyone was throwing burnout around. It was the buzzword of the year back in like 2023, 24 when this happened. I think because there were so many people talking about it, I was like, everyone's talking about it. People don't really seem to know what it looks like. It's just the thing you talk about after it happens. You know, there was no book of like, what are the warning signs? What are the red flags? How to make sure this doesn't happen. So I was
also a bit of that won't happen to me.
Well, I mean, I've said this before. I always thought, you know, like, I think because of how hard I work, I was like, I know this will eventually happen because I'm just like wired this way. Like I think all of us marketers who have ADHD, we're like, oh, eventually we're gonna like kick something off and it's gonna go down that way. But I think I always thought that if that was gonna happen to me, it would be doing something that I didn't enjoy, not something that I absolutely loved.
Oh, there you go.
I was massively unprepared for it to have happened to me doing a job that I loved in a role that I loved. I think, like I said before too, I didn't even know what it looked like. I was just going through the motions, doing all the things. I think the big, you know, if there had to be at what moment did you realize? It was, I'd run an event one weekend and it was a health and wellness event for the product that I was selling at the time. We'd sold out of the event within like 3 minutes. Then we decided to do another event straight after because we'd booked the venue for the whole day. Obviously, you know, like in my head, I was like, oh, of course we'll do a second event. It's more people, it's more, you know, experience, it's more product, of course. I didn't
and we
think...
sold our first one out in 3 minutes.
3 minutes,
yeah.
3 minute.
We'll
I
do
was
another
like,
5 events.
I was like, the audience is so engaged. This is amazing. But I didn't stop and think about the logistics of like, well, hang on. If you were at the venue at 4 a.m. in the morning for a 7 a.m. start, and then you've gone and just booked another event afterwards, and you're not going to leave the venue until 11 o'clock tonight, maybe think about how you'll feel afterwards. But I didn't. I was like, oh my God, more people, like the more experience. This is great. This is what this product is for. And I remember got home that night. Oh my God, it was like 11:30 by the time I got home. Woke up the next morning, felt like I'd been hit by a bus. Like I was like, you know, those memes you see and those dogs like roll out and their hair's everywhere and the tongue's hanging out of their mouth. Like that was me. I was like, get me a coffee. So I didn't feel good, but I was like, I'm just tired. And of course I should have been tired. It was like a 21-hour day. I was like, fair. And I remember I sat down on the couch, started checking my emails. I made my cup of coffee. I remember putting my laptop to the side and I was like, I just need a minute. And I was just like laid back, and I remember closed my eyes for a second, and then 3 hours had passed and I woke up and I thought, you know, I've just been out of it for like 10 seconds or something. Checked my watch. Suddenly it was 11:30 and I was like, what the hell? Like I literally just sat down and made coffee. Like where has this time gone? And that was sort of the first moment where I was like, oh, maybe something's not okay here. And for me, it was a really weird thing to think, because for so long I had been operating at such a speed and such a level that I'd kind of just almost rejigged my baseline of like how fast I move and how quickly I do things. For something to happen like that, where it was almost like my brain just decided to switch off for 3 hours, I was like, oh, maybe I need to go and talk to someone about this. I remember telling my partner and he was like, yeah, like I've been telling you, you've been going too hard for like ages, but you don't listen to me. That was the other thing for me, is because no one was really explaining what the signs of burnout look like. And then on top of that, everyone in my immediate network, whether friends, family, or people I was connected with through the business, they were telling me to slow down, but no one was the only marketing hire as a head of level marketing who was in a fast growing, high moving startup. I think if someone doing the same amount of work for me in a similar kind of company had told me to slow down, I would have taken it seriously. But everyone at the time telling me to slow down, like even my friends, you know, they were like office admin or construction workers, so they would like tap in, tap out Monday to Friday, whereas I was doing like Monday to Sunday. I was always contactable, so there just wasn't anyone to really understand exactly what I was going through, which is why I didn't take it seriously. After that moment, I was like, all right, maybe I'll go talk to someone. What do I have to lose? It's just a conversation. And I remember I booked in to see a psychiatrist, and I thought, right, I'll see what this professional says, because she deals with humans like me all the time. And it was so funny because obviously I'd never met her before, and I'm always quite cynical. I'm like, oh, these people will just tell you what you want to hear. Like, you know, you're paying them for their opinion. And within 3 minutes of meeting me and me telling her like why I thought, you know, she's like, oh, what brought you here today? I was like, I don't know, you tell me. Like you're the pro. Like tell me what you think. And she just asked me a few questions about, you know, like what I was doing and all of this. Within 3 minutes, she'd basically diagnosed me, like nail on the head. She was like, right, you need to stop. If you do not slow down, you are going to fully burn yourself out in the worst way possible, and then it's going to take you 6 to 9 months to come back from this. And that was really hard to hear, because obviously at that point didn't really know what burnout was, didn't realize the impact of what it could do to you. Like, I think for me, because I was just so tired from the amount of work that I was doing, I just thought that was literally the result of how much I'd been executing on. I didn't think it was like the warning stages of starting to burn myself out. So when I heard her say that, I was like, oh shit, this is serious, Chanel. Like, you need to have a look at yourself. I remember it was so funny. I said to her, I was like, okay, cool. So like, game plan, what's the solution? How do we solve this? Like, I was in, survival mode then. I was like, right, you've told me the problem, tell me the solution. Let's map this out. Where do we go from here? And she's like, right, so you probably need to take like 2 months off work. I was like hell, I'm taking 2 months off work.
I could see that one coming.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way. Like, I know you've only met me for like 3 minutes, but do you really think that's doable? And she's like, okay, so like, you tell me, like, what do you think you need? And I was like, well, I'm here talking to you because I don't know what I need. And she's like, well, how long do you think you could take off work realistically? And I was like, a week. And she was like, no, that's not long enough. And then she was like, 4 weeks. And I said, no, that's too long. So I'm sitting there bargaining with a professional. Bargaining with a professional about what to do. And I remember she said to me, right, like, this has to realistically work for you. So I said, would 2 weeks do it? And in my head, I was like, it's 10 business days. It's an Easter holiday. It's a long weekend. Like, this will be fine. And she said, take 10 days, see how you go. We'll check back in afterwards and, reevaluate. What I really struggled with after this is, obviously there was a lot of acceptance of, oh shit, I'm in this position. I'm now having to take time off because I got myself to a point where I wasn't okay mentally. And then when I went back to work in New Zealand, you have to take mental health leave as sick leave. And I really struggled with that because I didn't feel sick and I didn't feel mentally unwell. I just felt tired. I'd just gone a little bit too hard for a little bit too long, and that was the outcome. So to suddenly have these words thrown in my face of sick leave and mental health, I didn't know how to process that. And even filling in, we had an HR lady at the time, filling in my leave form of saying Chanel is sick and needs to take time off. It just felt like this narrative that wasn't true. And I really struggled. There was so much, I was embarrassed, to be honest. I was so embarrassed that I'd got myself to that point. I felt guilty for not being able to manage my time or prioritize what I was doing to essentially like get myself there. And then I think I was just ashamed that now I needed to take time off work and away from the business that I was supposed to be helping because I'd done too much. That took me a long time to unpack. I remember even before I went on mental health leave, I was like, okay, so like this is the thing now that I have to do to apparently get better. You're supposed to take time off. I was like, what am I supposed to do? And the psychiatrist was like, oh, I don't know, like, go for walks on the beach, read a book, like, chill out. I was like, do you know me? Like, I don't chill. I am an active relaxer. And it was just so foreign to me that I'd essentially got myself to such a point that I was going to have to totally stop. It wasn't a slow down, it was a stop. It was a drop everything you're doing. Don't go to work. There is no expectation from you to do anything other than wake up, eat, and go to sleep. And I think other than when I was a baby, that has never been an expectation on me.
So it's been a while.
It's been a while since that's been an expectation. But I was just like, what am I supposed to do? Yeah. I remember reaching out to friends because, I had lost so much of myself in the business as well. My role had basically become my whole identity. And I think because of the scale that the company was growing and everyone was paying attention to us, Chanel Clark was the head of marketing at Arepa, and that was my entire personality. And even like with friends, friends would buy a Arepa product and then tag me in it or like be like, oh, look at what I bought today. So it was so intrinsically weaved now into who I was as human that then having the time off, I was like, okay, who am I without having to do this work? And I had no idea anymore. And that was terrifying because I was getting so much validation both externally and internally from the work that I was doing for the company and how hard I was going and what we were achieving, then to essentially being told from someone else that that wasn't the right way to do it and you've now gone too hard, too fast and it's negatively affecting you. It was kind of like this catch-22 of, but it did so well for this business, but you're telling me I lost myself in the process, but now it's on me to try and fix myself and I've never been through this before. Like, it was so much to unpack and I was like, I don't even know where to start.
What about acceptance too? Because
I can
imagine myself in this situation. I have been in somewhat similar, not exactly the same. Like seeing those words and that sick leave, this type of thing. you can see it, but you also then, like, there's this acceptance piece that I think personally I'd struggle with. Did you accept it?
I didn't. I think, and I still to this day, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that to take mental health leave is called sick leave. I mean, there's a lot of stigma around mental health anyway, especially in New Zealand. So I really think there's stuff around there that needs to be changed, because as a human going through that, already feeling ashamed that was where I was at, and then being told that I was sick, it still doesn't sit well to me to this day. I think there's a massive thing that needs to change around that. I think even just the way that it was described as well, like I remember, essentially having to try and communicate to people work-wise of like, hey, I'm not around for 10 days. And like even just setting my email as like, I remember saying to HR, I was like, can I just say I'm on holiday? Like, I really don't want to like talk about this professionally. It sounds like then that I've not been able to do something well enough, or I've not essentially, achieved what I needed to in this role, because clearly I wasn't capable at looking after myself in the process, which is something, when you're hired as an employee, yes, you're expected to do the role, but you're expected to look after yourself too. And I'd totally fallen short of that. And accepting that was what had happened. I mean, I cried every single day I was on mental health leave. I woke up in the morning and I cried because I struggled to understand that was the situation I got myself in. I struggled to comprehend what I was supposed to do with my time without clinging it to something tangible and valuable like work. And I think too, just I suppose recognizing that I had got myself to that point with a company that I loved, and probably in the back of my head I was starting to think like, okay, if I can't be trusted and I can't set boundaries for myself in this role, what does next steps look like? I was starting to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together and be like, after these 10 days, whatever woo-woo thing I was supposed to figure out, if that happens, I'm going back into the environment that caused this. So what does the future of that look like? Like, it was terrifying.
And so what did happen after the 10 days?
In the last 10 days, I ended up going down to my partner's parents have a batch. So we sort of, went there for a little bit, no technology, or I was like, let me ground myself and get in nature, and I'll go meditate. Or
bare feet
so,
walking.
I was like,
Nice.
just get me in. I'll go in the ocean and cleanse my soul or whatever. Had a few glasses of champagne actually, and I was like, right, what are next steps? I'm back in the office on Monday. I need to give everyone an answer of how I am and what I'm doing. I think what I realized, and it was really hard, is because I had proven that I wasn't able to set boundaries in that role that I was in, and the business was growing, we weren't hiring any more people. So basically going back was just putting myself back into the thing that burnt me. And I just started being like, what is more important to me in life? Is it the person that I show up to as, to friends, to family members? Like, I'd obviously become almost like a soul of a human, like, because I was working so hard, I didn't want to hang out with anyone. I wasn't becoming a good partner. I wasn't someone that I was proud of personally. I was proud of me professionally. My God, my career was growing. I was like this power hungry, ambitious head of marketing that was setting the status quo for what good marketing looked like for a brand. But I was like, if I can't live with the human that I have become, then no amount of work or no career accolade or anything is going to be worth it. That was something that was really hard for me, because I am such an ambitious and driven person professionally. So to suddenly have to take a step back and be like, yeah, cool, bro, you did all that shit, but you lost yourself in the process, and you as a human is more important than you as an employee. I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to make a call here, aren't I? So I remember a few glasses of champagne, obviously got the confidence to be like, all right, what's next? And I started thinking about, if I go back, what is that going to look like? Realized that realistically, it wasn't going to be me being a good human. It would just be me going back into the same kind of things. That was where I had the idea to start my own consultancy. I thought, right, if I can do all of this amazing work for one brand, why couldn't I do it for 3 or 4 at the same time? While I was at that brand too, I had a lot of other brands reaching out to me, just wanting to pick my brain over the stuff that I was doing for them. So there was a lot of little seeds that were planted along the way of, maybe I could be quite valuable here. Yeah.
Yes.
I can make some money off this.
You can pick my brain for a price. Yes, you can.
Yeah. I think like the benefit of having those 10 days, as much as I probably cried most of them, it was the first time in 2 years that I'd had 10 days of silence to just sit and be like, what does Chanel want? Yeah. What is the future she is trying to build? What are the things that are important to her? Does this role still serve? I literally did a pros and cons list. Who do I want to be? Where do I want to be in 5 years? All this stuff. And then I was essentially like tick boxing. Does this role still serve this? Does you doing this still get you there? Is there another way that you could get to this point? I remember like looking at all of it and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to resign. And that was really hard as well because, like I said, I hadn't fallen out of love with the company. No one also, like, it's easy, I think, when you're in that situation to be like, oh, well, my employers pushed me too hard. They were the reason that caused all of this. For me, it was harder because I was my own reason for getting myself to that point. Like, no one at that company was holding a gun to my head and being like, you need to go at it 200% all the time. It was
you
just...
need to do 2 events in a day.
Yeah, exactly. It was just because
21-hour days only here.
That is the baseline. Yeah. No, it was just because I was enjoying so much of what I was doing there that I just went for it. And it was, you know, the validation from seeing it working. I think if stuff hadn't worked so well, I would have been like, oh, okay, I'll slow down a bit. But to be moving so fast and seeing it work and then move fast again, and, you know, the goalpost was constantly moving. So there was never a time where I was like, okay, you know, maybe this is the time to slow down, maybe next time, whatever. And I think just recognizing that was something that I had to essentially be okay with, that I had put myself in that position. Like, yes, sure, management could have stepped in and been like, hey, Chanel, do we think this is a good idea? You know, we've done a lot in the last 6 months. It's okay if we don't do more in the next 6 months. But then from a business angle, I was like, do more. How much can we fit in? Like, this is amazing. The momentum's building. Obviously, we had all these campaigns going live as well. So it was like the more we could fit in, the more everything was going to benefit. It was just a really hard moment to sit and be like, I got myself into this and I am going to have to get myself out of it. Like, no one is coming to save me here. This is 100% something that I have to do by myself. Obviously, moving on from that is, how do I make sure to never get myself in this position again? And
how do you never get yourself in that position again?
I think when you get yourself to that point, and again, like I struggled to process it because I'd never gone through it. I think early on when I was going through it, you know, even like a month after it had happened and I'd gone on mental health leave and all of that, I was just struggling to come to terms with that had been the situation that I was in. Now, obviously, almost a year later, I give myself a lot more grace of, how did I expect myself to know how to deal with a situation that I had never been in before? You know, it was a new experience. It was something that I hadn't ever encountered before, so why on earth should I have known how to deal with it? And that's been a bit, you know, hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? Like, in the moment, I was like, oh, you idiot. Like, how do you not know these steps? Whereas now I can look back and be like, how was I supposed to know? I'd never been in that level of role. I'd never been given that much flex to do things. I'd never been in love with, you know, the work that I was doing that much. So,
but this is getting reinforced from everywhere as well, right?
Oh, 100%.
Like, everyone, you know, tagging you, all this all the time.
Yeah.
You can imagine how
there was
so engrossed in it. Yeah.
There was nothing happening that was basically saying this isn't working. Yeah. Everything in my whole ecosystem was like, everything you are doing is growing. It is amazing. Like, we see it, we believe it. And I was like, ah. Yeah. In terms of what I've learned from it now is, I think when you get yourself to that point, and then you kind of reflect on it, there were a lot of things I recognized that probably were the warning signs I should have looked for, but I didn't know because no one was talking about it. So a big commitment that I made after I had gone through that process, or even before actually, is I remember thinking, because I had struggled to identify so much of what, you know, potentially burning yourself out looked like, I thought, if I was struggling to find out about it, then other people must be struggling to find out about it too. And I'd been starting to build my journey on LinkedIn a little bit. I was documenting a lot of what I had worked on at Arepa. And I thought, right, I have made a commitment to show up on this platform and be honest and authentic and vulnerable all the time. It would feel very insincere of me if I don't also tell people what I'm going through right now. So I remember going on LinkedIn and actually saying, I've gone a little bit too hard, a little bit too fast, and I have to take mental health leave. And I remember explaining, you know, it was such a process for me to even know that was what I was going through, because there was no one else talking about it. And I thought, if I'm the one that dies on this hill, that B's the one to start the conversation, then at least maybe it might help someone else to avoid where I was, because I could see how much it was affecting me, both just psychologically and mentally as well, and emotionally. And I thought, if I can be the one to start this conversation and someone else doesn't have to go through this shit, then like, awesome. I got so much support on LinkedIn from that one post, and it wasn't, you know, yes, there was all like the likes and oh yeah, you for admitting this is great. But it was the personal DMs that I got of people saying, I have been feeling like this for so long. I am so glad someone has said something. And these were people who I wasn't even initially connected with. They saw it because someone else saw it. There was like CEOs of huge companies reaching out to me and being like, you have literally said what I have been thinking for the last 6 months, but I didn't know how to tell anyone. Like, thank you for sharing this with us. And then that kind of became, I guess, part of my journey of while I was on mental health leave, as I was essentially documenting how it was going, like what I did today, how am I feeling, what does this process look like? Also, like, how am I just dealing with actually giving myself grace for being in this moment, you know, for processing and dealing with something that I never thought I was going to have to before. I think that really helped me, is just, you know, I never thought I was going to share it with anyone. I thought this was going to be this demon that I was going to fight in the background. But when I realized how many other people were potentially feeling like this and not getting any education or awareness from anyone, because everyone felt like it was this dirty little secret, whereas I was like, well, why should it be though? Like, it's not, I can understand it feeling like a dirty little secret if maybe your boss literally held a gun to your head and forced you to do the work. But when you're put in a situation in a company where there is so much scale to grow and you get given the freedom to do so, you shouldn't be made to feel guilty that you took every opportunity that you could and went and ran with it. Like, yes, it's an icky feeling afterwards. It's the consequence of running so fast. But, you know, same as sore muscles after a marathon. Like, you just deal with it and you move on. That really helped me, I think, being able to talk about it to people. I think for a little bit I almost inadvertently became like the poster child on LinkedIn for talking about mental health and burnout. But there was just so many, I guess, special conversations I had with people off the back of just admitting. And because so many people had been watching what the brand was doing, obviously I was careful to, you know, I always said this was not their fault. This was me just, you know, being full Chanel mode of like, she has to do everything all at once. But I think so many people resonated with that because it was just finally there was an honest human talking about the journey rather than trying it to be this polished of like, oh no, everything's fine. It was just a little hiccup. We're good.
I imagine that would have been very, look, I'm not probably putting words in your mouth here, but you would have been quite anxiety inducing to think about posting that initially.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then like comparing that to the reaction you got must have been quite a strange period. Like, and tell me if that's not right.
No, it was. I mean, the benefit of LinkedIn or any social media is if you can just delete a post, right? Yeah. So I was like, screw it. I'll say what I want to say. And then, I mean, I'm pretty sure after I posted, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. This is horrible. Part of my personal brand that I had built on LinkedIn was always around being honest, no matter what I was going through. And I thought, I'm going to be doing such a disservice to everyone who follows me if I do not be honest about this thing. So I thought, screw it, I'm just going to say that this is what's happening. And to be honest, a lot of people who have been following me on LinkedIn were the people that were like, oh, you're doing a lot. Like, how is this going? You okay? You know, like blink twice if you need help. I think it was almost met with, oh, I'm not surprised. You know, I remember that being a reaction of, there was the people who were like, thank you for saying something. Thank you for talking about it. And then there was a huge part of my, you know, community or followers that were like, could have called that. Like, you know, we were all there 6 months ago saying, when is this bomb going to explode? No one was really shocked. And I think too, that was kind of not a relief, but it was almost like everyone was kind of just watching, you know, waiting for the big bonfire to explode. It was basically, I was the ticking time bomb that of course it was going to get to that point. It was just like, when was it going to happen and how big was it going to happen? I think the response that I had from the LinkedIn post was so validating. Not that I needed validation because it was my own thing and I was dealing with it, but I made sure to say that, like, I really struggled with accepting that that was what was happening to me. I remember mentioning in the LinkedIn post about it being called sick leave. A lot of people, like, really related to that of, like, it's ridiculous that then you're considered sick. Even just, like, as a business, you know, like, if that is the level of empathy that goes into taking annual leave or sick leave or mental health leave, then businesses have a lot to say in terms of rewording some things because that was probably one of the biggest things that I struggled with when I was, you know, going through the motions of accepting what had happened and moving on from it and all that stuff. I literally got so caught on that sick leave bit, and that was where all the guilt, the anxiety, the embarrassment and the shame came from. And just being able to talk to other people who had gone through it and being like, oh, so, you know, you're 3 months ahead of where I'm at now. Like, how did you get through it? What do you prioritize now? You know, like, should I get into breath work or meditation, or is me just going to the gym good enough? Like, also just setting boundaries. I remember after, you know, when I came When I came back to work, I mean, I'd resigned, which was horrible. I'd like cried for like 30 minutes. Like my finger was like hovering over my resignation email for so long.
Hovering over send.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I was like, just do it.
Delete's just next to send, isn't it? Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'll just shut my laptop and go.
Oops.
But yeah, I think like after that, I still had, I had to give notice, obviously. So I had 4 weeks left with the role. And then I promised myself, I was like, right, this has been an absolutely horrific moment in my career, probably one of the worst. I've been made redundant before. I've been pushed out of a company for being female. I've been all kind of things. But because this was on me and it was something that I should have been able to control, technically though, like I don't take responsibility for not being able to control it, because like I said, it was an environment that I'd never been in and a role that I'd never been in with responsibility that I'd never had. I don't think it should have been on me to be able to know how to navigate that, because it was just like so foreign to me.
But it was your moment as well. Like this is like the stars have aligned. Like you're growing something like disproportionately to what everyone else did. So I imagine that would have been just so exciting.
Oh, it
all
was.
the time.
And I mean, like now, like this role was 2 years ago. I am still winning clients based off that role and what I did for that company. Even now, sometimes in my head, I'm like, oh, do I really regret burning out? Or like, there's still validation coming in from that shit moment 2 years ago. Or actually, interestingly, like spoke to a client the other day who had connected with me on LinkedIn because of that post. And now I'm potentially working with them. And I'm like, then it's like, oh, so was it good that I went through that? Because now I've got this work and, they've seen this other side of me. But it was very much like, right, what am I going to learn from this? Like I'm very pragmatic. I'm like, if something shit happens, what is the learning? What is the takeaway? And how do I never get back there? Because that thing slowed me down. It made me doubt myself. It's all the negative shit that I don't like. I set boundaries. Like on my phone, I did like the do not disturb time. So from like 8 p.m. till 6 a.m. I don't get notifications. That, sometimes I switch do not disturb off, so it's not very helpful. But it was just little things like that of what are the things that I could do that I could control that would stop me being so on all the time. Prioritizing what I enjoy. So like going to the gym is massive for me for my mental health. It's like routine. It's also something physical that, when my work day finishes, then I've got the gym and then it's literally I come home and work is not the thing anymore.
Yeah. So it's like a stopgap. Yeah.
Literal stopgap.
Yeah.
I mean, now that I work for myself, it's a lot harder, but like it was a beautiful idea. Home? Yes.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was little things like that. And I was looking at what other people were doing as well. Because obviously through that course of going through all that shit, I like met a lot of people who had gone through burnout and they were giving me all their things. And I think sometimes you just have to be like, okay, all that sounds good for you and it works for you, but what actually works for me and what's achievable, but also what's consistent. I'm not someone that's going to get up at 5 a.m. and run 10Ks and, go grab a coffee and, woo-saw into the ocean. Like that is just not me. I'm stoked if that works for you, but it was very much okay based on all the feedback that I've got. What are the little things that I think that I can bring into myself that will actually help me avoid doing that? Yeah,
and create your own system.
Yeah,
per se.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you in a minute about perhaps the aspects of this that you think is specific to marketers. But before I do that, I also wanted to touch on, because I've been in situations like that where I was the only marketer in a company of a fast-growing company, or meant to be fast-growing company, and perhaps it wasn't growing fast, which is also a tough thing to manage. I think it is a very unique thing if you're in a small business or in a startup, like like in tech as well. Like the expectations are crazy, like to actually raise money and do all that. And I used to refer to it as the Olympics of business. like it's a hard thing to do. That's one way I've kind of let myself off of it as well, because like I don't know how you did it really. Like being a sole marketer and growing the awareness and all that much is just I don't know how you did it, but because it's a really hard thing.
Yeah, I mean I can't honestly answer how I did it. I think when you adjust in go mode, you lose being able to explain how you make, like the closest thing I can think of is it's like when, parents have kids and they're juggling like full-time jobs and sports and after school practices and stuff, and someone says, I don't know how you juggle this. And they're like, I actually don't know either, but you just get so used to that becoming your normal. So I still don't have a good answer for it. Obviously I know the level of, how much work I never want to have on again. I mean, in saying that, I've basically got the same amount of work on because I work for myself now and with the marketing club that I do. I think it's just when you're doing work that is enjoyable and that you love, it is really hard to figure out when does this cross over that line of becoming too much. And I think for me, with what I was doing at a Reaper as well, the big challenge was because I was managing so much, specifically the social media, because it was social channels, which I, go through in my, like, as a hobby, I'm like doom scrolling Instagram or whatever. I think because it was Instagram, I didn't consider it work. So, yes, I was on the company Instagram and I was replying to customers or like sharing stories or whatever, but I was like, oh, but it's Instagram. I can do this while I'm watching a movie, like while I'm in bed, like this is chill. It's not, I'm not in my emails. I'm not building a newsletter. I'm just on Instagram, like talking to people. It was such an easy way to blur the lines then, because I remember, I'd wake up in the morning and there'd be, none of my friends gave a shit about me. All my notifications were from my work Instagram. But it was almost just this knee-jerk reaction of, oh, I'll get on Instagram in the morning, I'll start replying to stuff, and then I'm at the gym doing cardio, and that would be time that I'd reply to customers. But in my head, oh, I'm on Instagram, it's fine. So it was a lot of little things like that where now I was like, right, if I was ever managing socials or doing things like that for another brand, what is literally, like, what do I define as work for that brand and what isn't? Because that was where I, like, blurred it completely as well. And then, like, worse was, I'd become friends with the people that I was working with or the companies that we were doing things with. So it'd be so often at nighttime I'm like emailing someone from another company about a thing that we were doing, but I was like, oh, but we're friends. And it's just like, yes, it's work chat, but like they're my friends, so it's fine. It was like all those little things. I was like, Chanel, like, no wonder you weren't okay. But in my head at the time, I'd rationalized it.
Yeah. And it may be, like, social media is the thing I thought of that might be specific to marketing, where it's so easy to blur.
Oh, it is. And I think, like, for marketers as well, like, yes, other people in other industries have burnt out. I think marketing specifically, it is almost, and again, this is just my experience, but I think it is, if there was ever an industry that I would say would be like easiest to burn out in, it's marketing, because there is so much that is put on you. I think similar to what you said earlier, marketers have a huge expectation of what they're supposed to bring to a role. They're often, like when you look at an org chart of who the first hires are in the business, marketing's always the last thing on the list. So they basically come in when everything already exists. The expectation to just pick up all the stuff and start running with it is insane. So I think, like, if there was ever roles where I'm like, that's going to happen to you, it's 100% marketing. And I think now, because more people are talking about, there's more awareness around burnout and your mental health and how to juggle things. I think it is kind of becoming a bit more of a conversation around, yes, these are huge roles, but how do we actually, like, make them so it's not so overwhelming all the time? And I think that was the thing with, the role that I stepped into. It had never existed before. So it was like, hey, Chanel, come in, build the marketing function and then figure out how you want to run it. And, like, no one was telling me no. No one was saying, like, oh, we haven't done this before. Everyone's like, yeah, go try it, like, see what happens. I was like, all right. And because it was me as well reporting to myself, basically, like, no one was, there was no systems, there was no processes, there was no structure. Like, what was I going to do? Have a one-on-one meeting with myself of how things were going? I was just like, man, let's just see what happens.
I'm just picturing a similar type of situation I was in, where I grew like a restaurant chain. We opened about 14 restaurants in a year.
God.
Which was a lot as well. But then I'm just thinking back to that, almost a borderline addiction to the social aspect of it. Because especially when you're opening new places and that, you're wanting to respond to people because you're wanting the launch to go so well. I mean, I think to myself, oh, the customer's DM'd at 8 p.m. I'll respond now rather than 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Yeah, making them wait 11 hours.
That's a crap customer experience. Interesting about what you said about, marketers being the last to be hired as well.
Yeah.
In the org chart.
I mean, that's that's a stat, obviously, that I'm hoping I will live long enough to see change. I think it is starting to change now. I think, like, even clients that I work with, it's, small businesses or startups who, they might only be a 1 or 2 man band, but they're already thinking about the marketing that they need to do. And I'm like, yes, this is changing. When you look at traditional businesses and how they're set up, if you think you've got, the CEO, the sales, the ops, the finance, all that, and then marketing comes in as the last thought, the amount of work that they have to pick up, not only to understand the company, but get marketing as a function to grow, it's like that in itself is like a 5-person job. You've got one person coming in who was probably hired as a marketing exec, and you told them that they were responsible for all these things. And I think marketers too, we're all cut from the same cloth. So if you give us one job, but we know there's 5 other things that we could do that might benefit this one job, we're going to say yes to all of that as well. And I think that was my thing at that company is, Yes, I was hired as the head of marketing. I wasn't hired as head of events. I wasn't hired as head of social, head of internships, partnerships, whatever. But I could see how much doing those things could benefit the role that I was hired to do. So I was like, oh, yes, just give me everything. Like, I'll do all of this all at once. And with no one telling me, like, hey, maybe don't, I was like, all right, let's just see what happens.
Yeah. It's all going to come out in the wash in the dashboard.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting point, though, around, like, everything that happens does impact us often because we are held responsible for revenue and for sales and this type of thing. So if other things happen in the company or the brand's perceived differently in some way because of something someone else did, we kind of have to pick up the pieces a bit. Like
100%.
Yeah.
I remember, conversations, like a lot of my priority when I was in that business was also just making sure that the teams weren't so siloed, because I got in and, obviously I was one human. So it was like marketing literally sat over there, sales, ops and logistics were over there. And I'm such a connector. So I was like, hey guys, like, what do you got going on? And they're like, shut up, Chanel, you don't need to know. But I'm like, well, you guys are in charge of sales. How are the sales going? Is there anything marketing can do to support that? If I've got an event going on, can I make sure at the warehouse that we've got enough product to do this event? Like, it made no sense to me that things were so disconnected.
Yeah.
But then it's funny because it's like, trying to kind of get that buy-in from the business of why we should all be talking to each other. But then if sales were down, it was like, oh, well, you didn't run any marketing to help us. And I'm like, I asked you months ago if you wanted support. Like, do not. That's been something that I've seen shifting as well. And I think even just marketing teams starting to talk to other areas of the business. I think if I had that, it wasn't necessarily marketing support because I was always going to be a team of one, but even if I'd kind of had that level of interaction with everyone else in the business early on, I think I probably could have avoided quite a bit of where I got myself to, because I was literally like on an island by my own, watching everyone else have the party over there. And I was just like, oh yeah, cool. Like, have fun, guys. I'm just going to be over here drowning. But like, if I'd been able to tell everyone what I was doing, I think, and I always, benefit of hindsight again, but I always think if more people in the business had known what I was up to, maybe someone at some point would have said, this is a lot, man. Like, are you sure that we can do, like, is this realistic? But also just as a human, like, are you okay? Because the business wasn't talking. I mean, as I left, or like, as I grew in the role, like, we got way better at it, and, we were having all meetings together. But because I had no one to talk to about what I was doing, it worked in a negative way, because literally no one had any idea what I was up to either. It was just, I was just the lone ranger off doing all the stuff and then giving the updates, and everyone's like, oh shit, that was a lot. And I'm like, yeah, it was. Like, I'm not okay. But come back next month.
Thanks for sharing all that with us. I'm just, thinking now that, I certainly did earlier in my career as well. Like, you think about your customers as the marketer. You're thinking about the customers of the business.
Yeah.
But you actually need to think about your own customer, which is the business who's paying you. That was a mindset I had that was, like, it made sense to me. Like, I'm here to get us more customers, get people, make more money. Yeah, you do actually need to focus on talking to inside, the stakeholders of the business as well.
Yeah.
But it's easy to not think you need to, because your job's to talk to the customers and get more customers. So that's another thing that maybe is unique to our profession. But,
so many things.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. I appreciate you being so open. A lot of people are going to get a lot out of that episode. If anyone wanted to find you somewhere, where should they go?
Just search me on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Speaking of which, well, that's on brand, isn't it? We've come full circle. Yeah. We're back to LinkedIn. But really appreciate it, Chanel. Thanks for taking the time.
No, thank you.